Have you ever stopped to think about how much time you spend on people who don't truly value you? Think about it for a moment. How many times have you modified your decisions, your words, or even your way of being just to fit in with someone else? Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of all time, discovered something that could completely change your life. The bravest act you can perform is to choose yourself. Imagine this. Every time you sacrifice your needs to please others, every time you beg for attention from those who don't naturally give it to you, you're sending a powerful message to your unconscious. You're telling it, "I'm not enough. I don't deserve to be a priority. My worth depends on external validation." Jung identified this pattern as one of the main causes of human suffering, a profound disconnection from our authenticity. Now, answer me honestly. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and asked yourself if you're living the life you truly desire? Not the one others expect from you, not the one that seems right according to social standards, but the one that deeply resonates with your soul. This seemingly simple question contains the core of Jung's teachings on individuation, that process through which we truly become who we are meant to be. Today's world is designed to keep you distracted, trapped in an endless cycle of comparison and seeking approval. Social media, family expectations, even friendships you've maintained for years, everything can become an invisible prison if you don't have the courage to question it. Jung understood this almost a century ago, long before we had smartphones or Instagram. The greatest trap isn't outside of us, but in our own mind. When you allow others to define your worth, when you adjust your behavior to receive crumbs of attention from those who don't fully honor you, you're ignoring the signals from your unconscious. And according to Jung, this unconscious isn't something you can silence indefinitely. It will manifest through symptoms: unexplained anxiety, disturbing dreams, dysfunctional relationships that repeat over and over. These are signals, messengers trying to wake you up. Jungian psychology teaches us that our connection with the unconscious isn't optional. It's essential for our mental and spiritual health. However, many of us have learned to ignore its signals because facing them requires courage. That feeling of discomfort you experience when something doesn't fit in your life isn't coincidence. It's your soul speaking to you, showing you that something needs to change, even though you fear doing it. Think about the important decisions you've made in the last few months. How many were born from a place of authenticity, from that deep core where your truth resides? And how many were driven by fear, by the need to meet others' expectations, or simply by not wanting to upset anyone? Jung invites us to this reflection because he understood that decisions that don't come from our inner truth generate more chaos and disconnection in our existence. Now, it's crucial to understand that choosing yourself doesn't mean rejecting others. We're not talking about selfishness or narcissism, concepts that Jung studied deeply. It's about recognizing that to offer your best to the world, you must first be at peace with yourself. This is the foundation of authentic self-love. Not that superficial concept we see on social media, but a deep work of acceptance and honesty. When you begin to consciously prioritize yourself, something extraordinary happens in your energy field. You start attracting people and situations that are aligned with your essence. It's as if the universe responds to your decision to live in truth, removing obstacles and bringing what you really need to evolve. Jung called this synchronicity, that mysterious connection between your inner world and external circumstances. But to get there, you must first face your shadows. In Jungian psychology, the shadow represents those parts of ourselves that we've repressed, ignored, or feared. They are aspects we don't want to see, but which continue to influence our decisions from the depths of our being. And although confronting them may be uncomfortable, it's precisely in that confrontation where true transformation begins. Because when you integrate your shadows, when you stop fighting against them and learn to accept them as legitimate parts of who you are, you discover an inner power that perhaps you didn't even know you possessed. Jung discovered that our greatest strengths are often hidden within what we fear most about ourselves. This integration process doesn't happen overnight. It requires courage, patience, and an unwavering willingness to know yourself at increasingly deeper levels. But what you gain in return is invaluable. Mental clarity, authentic purpose, and an inner peace that no one can take away from you. You gain the ability to say no when something doesn't resonate with you, without fear of rejection or abandonment. And above all, you gain the freedom to be genuinely who you are. Are you wondering how to start this journey toward authenticity? The answer is simpler than you might imagine. Begin by listening to yourself. Whenever you feel discomfort, doubt, or intense emotion, stop and ask yourself what your unconscious is trying to communicate to you. Jung stated that all the answers we seek outside are already within us. We just need the courage to listen to them and act accordingly. One of the most difficult tasks we face is to attend to our intuition, especially when it guides us in a direction that challenges what we've built. Perhaps it's a relationship that deep down you know no longer works, a job that consumes your energy without purpose, or even a dream you've pursued only because it seemed right by external standards. Jung reminds us that ignoring these intuitive signals isn't an act of strength, but a denial of our true essence. Choosing yourself means having the courage to let go of what no longer resonates with your being. This is rarely easy. Often we cling to the familiar out of fear of the unknown, repeating the mantra, "Better the devil you know than the devil you don't." But Jung challenges us to see change not as a frightening end, but as a portal to a more authentic and fulfilled version of ourselves. Reflect on this. What are you holding on to in your life that no longer serves you? What relationships, beliefs, or habits do you maintain out of fear of letting them go? Perhaps you feel that letting go of certain situations or people would represent an irreparable loss. But the real loss occurs when you sacrifice your inner peace to maintain something that has lost its meaning. Choosing yourself isn't selfishness. It's a profound act of love and respect for who you truly are. When you finally make the decision to prioritize yourself, something that seems magical happens, but which Jung explained through depth psychology. You begin to perceive clearly what was previously clouded. People who genuinely support you remain, while those who drained your energy gradually move away. This isn't coincidence or chance. It's the external reflection of an internal change, that Jungian synchronicity that aligns your outer reality with your inner truth when you decide to live in coherence. This process also requires brutal honesty with yourself. Sometimes, choosing yourself means admitting that you've made decisions that don't reflect who you really are. Perhaps you've allowed certain people to repeatedly cross your boundaries, or you've said yes to commitments that you knew deep inside you should reject. Jung teaches us that this isn't cause for self-flagellation, but a valuable opportunity to learn, recalibrate, and choose again from a place of greater awareness. Authenticity, according to Jung, isn't a state you achieve once and for all. It's a continuous journey, a process of constant learning and growth. On that path, you'll inevitably face resistance, both internal and external. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you feel the temptation to return to old patterns simply because they're comfortable and familiar. But in those moments of doubt, remember that true growth always occurs outside your comfort zone. The world won't always understand your decision to choose yourself. There will be those who criticize you, who question your choices, and even those who distance themselves because you no longer fit their expectations or projections. Jung observed this phenomenon constantly in his clinical practice. When someone begins to individuate, they often face resistance from their environment. This can be painful, but it's also deeply liberating. Because when you choose yourself, you stop depending on external validation. You understand that your value isn't determined by others' opinions, but by your own perception of yourself. This doesn't mean you should isolate yourself or disconnect from others. On the contrary, Jung emphasized that when you authentically choose yourself, your relationships transform qualitatively. You no longer desperately seek approval, but genuine connection. You no longer settle for superficial or toxic bonds, but naturally attract relationships that nourish your soul. And in that process, You discover that the right people will always remain by your side, not because they need you to complete themselves, but because they genuinely value who you are. When you begin to live from your authenticity, the world around you inevitably changes. This isn't magical thinking or an empty self-help promise. It's a profound psychological principle that Jung documented extensively. Our psyche projects outwardly what we carry within. If you live in internal conflict, you'll attract conflict. If you reject yourself, you'll attract rejection. But if you choose yourself, if you fully accept yourself, you'll gradually notice how the circumstances and people around you also transform. This metamorphosis isn't instantaneous. It's a gradual process that requires patience and unwavering commitment. There will be days when you feel you're moving backward, moments when your old patterns will try to resurface strongly. In Jungian terminology, this is known as ego resistance, that part of us that clings to the known even when it no longer serves us. The true test lies in your ability to remain firm in your decision to choose yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you feel alone on the path. Our current society greatly values personal sacrifice, especially in certain roles such as parenthood, romantic relationships, or even friendships. The predominant message is, give everything for others, even at the expense of your well-being. But Jung, ahead of his time, understood the fallacy of this thinking. We cannot genuinely offer what we don't possess. If you constantly sacrifice your happiness, your energy, or your inner peace to please others, what you're offering lacks authenticity, and sooner or later, that imbalance will manifest as resentment, exhaustion, or existential crisis. Examine your current relationships honestly. How many make you feel inspired, energized, and at peace? And how many leave you exhausted, confused, or with that feeling of emptiness you can't explain? Jung invites us to this reflection because our relationships aren't mere social connections, but precise mirrors of our inner state. The people we allow into our intimate life reflect the beliefs and values we harbor within. If you repeatedly allow someone to cross your personal boundaries, it's not because that person is inherently toxic, but because there's a part of you that still hasn't learned to establish and maintain healthy boundaries. Protecting your psychic energy isn't a selfish act. It's a fundamental act of self-love that Jung considered essential for mental health. The unconscious, according to his discoveries, constantly works to guide us toward our well-being and growth, but we frequently ignore its signals. That feeling of exhaustion you experience after interacting with certain people isn't chance or hypersensitivity. It's your unconscious communicating that that relationship isn't aligned with your essence. If you repeatedly decide to ignore that signal, the price will always be your inner peace. Choosing yourself necessarily implies establishing clear boundaries. And boundaries, contrary to popular belief, aren't defensive walls to keep others at a distance, but bridges that enable more authentic and balanced relationships. When you say no to what doesn't nourish or respect you, you're simultaneously saying yes to your truth, your dreams, and your integral well-being. This doesn't mean cutting ties indiscriminately, but being honest with yourself about which relationships strengthen you and which systematically weaken you. As you begin to exist from this newly discovered authenticity, something extraordinary happens. Your intuition noticeably sharpens. That inner voice that previously seemed faint or confused begins to guide you with increasing clarity. You start making decisions that not only make rational sense, but also deeply resonate with your being. This is the transformative power of choosing yourself. It reconnects you with your intuition, with that inner compass that has always been present, patiently waiting for you to trust it. Intuition, as Jung explained in his deepest writings, represents one of the most direct forms of connection with the collective unconscious. It's that inexplicable certainty you feel when something simply is right or doesn't fit beyond rational analysis. To effectively listen to it, you need to quiet the external noise that constantly competes for your attention. This means gradually freeing yourself from the need for social approval, disconnecting from limiting cultural expectations, and developing trust in your own inner wisdom. Because ultimately, no one else can determine what's best for your unique path. When you consciously decide to choose yourself, you're sending an unequivocal message to the universe. I'm ready to live from my essential truth. And the universe, or rather the field of possibilities, according to the Jungian perspective, responds accordingly. You naturally begin to attract people, opportunities, and experiences that are aligned with your authentic self. This doesn't guarantee an existence free of challenges or difficulties, but those obstacles are no longer experienced as a constant struggle against the current. Instead, they transform into opportunities to deepen your self-knowledge and strengthen your internal connection. By choosing to live from your authenticity, you also begin to experience what Jung called synchronicity more frequently. Those seemingly coincidental events that perfectly fit into your life are tangible manifestations of your inner alignment. When you honor your essential truth, the universe seems to conspire in your favor in surprising ways. The right opportunities appear at the precise moment. The right people enter your life when you need them, and gradually everything begins to flow with a naturalness that previously seemed unattainable. However, the path isn't free of obstacles. Paradoxically, the most significant challenges often arise precisely when you decide to choose yourself. It's as if the world, accustomed to the compliant and adapted version of you, tries to test your commitment to this new direction. Here lies your true transformative power. Each time you reaffirm your decision in the face of adversity, each time you choose your inner peace over external demands, you're strengthening that sacred bond with your authentic self. The key is to remain firm even when doubt assails you. It's completely normal to experience fear when abandoning the familiar, even when you rationally recognize that it no longer benefits you. But remember this profound Jungian truth. Each time you choose to remain in an environment or situation that doesn't allow you to flourish, you're closing the door to transformative potentials that could reveal unexplored dimensions of yourself. Jung taught us that true change never occurs without resistance, but that resistance doesn't indicate you're wrong, but that you're advancing in the right direction. A powerful strategy to overcome this resistance consists of clarifying your essential values. What represents what's truly important to you, beyond social conditioning? What kind of life do you aspire to build? When you achieve clarity about your fundamental values and purposes, making decisions aligned with them becomes considerably simpler. And by doing so consistently, you naturally begin to attract people and circumstances that share that same energetic vibration. It's fundamental to remember that you're not alone on this journey of self-discovery. Although choosing yourself may initially seem like an act of isolation, you're actually building the path that will attract the right people for your evolution. Those who support you unconditionally, who celebrate your achievements without envy, and who walk beside you without trying to control you. These people don't need you to transform to fit into their lives. They accept you as you are because they too have chosen to live from their own essential truth. When you reach this level of alignment, something within you changes permanently. Life no longer feels like a constant struggle against external forces. Decisions that previously seemed overwhelming are now made with clarity and inner confidence. And most significantly, you discover a serenity that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Because, as Jung taught us through decades of psychological research, true peace can only emanate from within. That inner peace is the natural result of honoring your authentic needs, respecting your personal boundaries, and living in coherence with your essential values. But it also constitutes a gift that you can share with the world. When you live from your authenticity, you silently inspire others to do the same. Your courage becomes a luminous beacon for those who are seeking their own path in the darkness. And in this transformative process, you not only reconfigure your own existence, but profoundly impact those around you in ways that perhaps you may never fully know. Visualize for a moment how your life would be if you could release everything that doesn't resonate with your essence. How would you feel if you definitely abandoned relationships that systematically drain your vitality, commitments that don't inspire you, and others' expectations that you never wanted to assume? Imagine the expansive freedom the lightness of being, and the mental clarity you would experience. Jung assured us that this doesn't constitute an unattainable utopia, but a real possibility that's within reach of anyone who decides to embark on the inner journey with courage and perseverance. When you make this transformative decision, you gradually understand that you're not losing anything by letting go of what doesn't resonate with your truth. On the contrary, you're creating vital space for what truly matters in your existence. You're consciously designing a life that not only makes conceptual sense, but fills you with authentic purpose and deep joy. This is the invaluable gift that Jung wished for all of us to discover, that true transformation begins precisely when we stop seeking outside what has always resided within us. When you choose to exist from your essential authenticity, something extraordinary happens at all levels of your being. You begin to feel genuinely alive. You're no longer trapped in the invisible cage of others' expectations or in the demands of a society that constantly tries to mold you according to its own parameters. Instead, you begin to listen to that inner voice that has always been present, whispering to you that something deeper, something more meaningful awaits you if you develop the necessary courage to pursue it. That feeling of inner freedom is invaluable. It's as if a heavy burden that you've unconsciously carried for years suddenly dissolves, allowing you to breathe fully for the first time. However, achieving this freedom requires genuine courage. It demands confronting not only external expectations, but also your own deep-rooted fears, persistent doubts, and limiting beliefs. Jung constantly reminded us that the greatest obstacle isn't found outside of us, but within. It's that internal critical voice that insistently asks, "What if I'm not enough? What if I completely fail?" But here lies the liberating revelation. That voice doesn't represent your essential truth. It's simply an echo of past experiences, of conditioning accumulated throughout your personal history. Each time you choose to consciously confront it, each time you act despite paralyzing fear, you're gradually dismantling those limiting structures and creating space for something completely new. This is the true transformative power of choosing yourself. You progressively free yourself from the invisible chains that have restricted your potential for too long. As you advance on this path of self-discovery, you begin to notice something fascinating. What previously seemed crucially important, what disproportionately consumed your vital energy, begins to lose its power over you. You no longer feel that internal compulsion to constantly compete, to prove your worth, or to indiscriminately please others. Instead, you discover a deep satisfaction in the simple act of being authentically yourself. And it's precisely in this state of authenticity where you find your true personal power. This transformative power doesn't consist of controlling others or imposing your will on the world. It's a power that naturally emerges from the deep connection with your inner being, with that dimension of you that has always known your true identity and your authentic needs. It's a silent but irresistible power. Because when you're aligned with your essence, no external force can permanently divert you from your evolutionary path. The extraordinary beauty of this process lies in that it not only transforms your individual life, but also that of those around you. When you consistently choose yourself, you become a living testimony of authenticity. You silently inspire others to question their own limiting beliefs, to challenge their paralyzing fears, and to choose their personal truth. You don't need to preach or intellectually convince. Simply by being who you truly are, you're making a significant difference in the world. This fundamental principle was deeply understood by Carl Jung in his extensive psychological research. He recognized that individual transformation inevitably generates an expansive effect, that each time a person chooses their authenticity, they're contributing to a collective evolution. Because when we live from our essential truth, our relationships, communities, and eventually the entire world subtly reconfigures. But don't be confused. This inner journey doesn't follow a linear trajectory. You'll experience days of exceptional clarity and strength, and others in which you'll question absolutely everything. Jung considered these moments of doubt not as setbacks, but as valuable opportunities to deepen your internal connection. Each challenge, Each apparent setback constitutes an invitation to reflect more deeply, learn with humility, and grow exponentially. The essential thing is to constantly remember that you're not alone on this transformative journey. Although the path to authenticity may initially seem solitary, you'll invariably find people, books, teachings, and resources that will appear precisely when you need them most. Perhaps it's a revealing conversation, a transformative book, or even this video that reaches you exactly at the right moment. These synchronicities aren't casual coincidences. They're confirmations that you're advancing in the right direction. When you retrospectively contemplate everything you've overcome, you recognize that each step, each decision, has inexorably led you to this precise moment. And although the future remains partially veiled, there exists an immutable certainty. As long as you continue consistently choosing yourself, you'll be progressively building a life that truly deserves to be fully lived. The most valuable gift you can offer yourself is the freedom to be authentically yourself, not the version of you that others expect or project, nor the one you've artificially fabricated to fit in socially, but your purest essence, the one that naturally exists when no one is observing. Carl Jung dedicated his life to demonstrating that the true vital work doesn't consist of seeking answers externally, but in patiently unraveling the mystery we carry within. And when you finally choose yourself without reservations, you discover that everything you desperately sought has always resided within you. This message constitutes an invitation to immediate action. Life is too brief and precious to live trapped in the prison of others' approval, to systematically ignore your authentic needs and your deepest dreams. Today is the perfect moment to take that brave first step, to compassionately confront your shadows, to attentively listen to your intuition, and to consciously reconnect with your true self. Because when you choose yourself unconditionally, you not only transform yourself, but silently contribute to the evolution of the world around you. And now, I ask you, what will you do with this information? This is the ideal moment to deeply reflect on what you've heard. Ask yourself honestly, which aspects of my current life are genuinely aligned with my essence? What do I need to definitely let go of to live with greater authenticity? Remember that each small conscious step is significant, and you're not alone on this transformative journey. This space, this channel, exists precisely to remind you of your unlimited potential and to accompany you on your evolutionary path. If this message has deeply resonated with you, allow its impact to transcend your individual experience. Share this video with someone who you intuit might need it, perhaps someone who is seeking answers or going through a particularly challenging stage. Each meaningful interaction, each sincere comment, each like, helps this transformative message reach more people who need it. Imagine the collective change we could generate together as a community of individuals committed to living from their essential truth. Share your experience in the comments. Tell me which aspect of this message especially touched your heart, or how you plan to consciously choose yourself from this moment on. Each shared word has value, not only for me, but for all those who are seeking inspiration on their path to authenticity. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications to not miss future transformative messages. Together, we can bring this vital reflection to every corner, to every person who needs to remember that their true power resides in the brave decision to be who they truly are. Thank you for your conscious presence, for listening attentively, and above all, for being part of this transformative community. Always remember, you're not alone on this path. True transformation begins with you, and today's world urgently needs more people who have the courage to live from their authenticity. We'll meet again in the next video. And never forget this fundamental truth. Authentic life begins precisely at the moment you decide to choose yourself above everything else.